These are 10 games that we're obsessed with right now.
Yeah, like, you know, like we're enjoying them a lot. And
No,
playing
we're obsessed with them.
Well, I mean, you know, like a healthy enjoyment.
I sleep with them.
What?
No, not like in a weird way.
Okay, because
like they're like in my bag. Like
Yeah.
I use
Like
I
you're in
use the
there
rule
with
books as a
them.
blanket. Yeah. That might be the dumbest cold open we've ever done,
That
Mike.
was out there, man. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph. Please consider subscribing.
Of course.
Maybe because that cold open or in spite of it.
You have to now.
We'd love it if you subscribe still. Please still subscribe.
Please do.
We need you. We are talking about games that are currently occupying
Just so much of
a
our brain
large
space.
part of our pea-sized brains, okay? Now, it doesn't take much to get us really into a game, but these are ones that we
Right now.
are really into. Some of them are because they're new. Some of them because they're classics and we're coming back to them around because of Board Game Arena or whatever else. But here are 10 games that right now are it for us.
Quickly, before we start the top 10, we want to say there's going to be a second top 10, a supplemental top 10 of 10 more games that we're super, super into right now over on our Patreon. So make sure to check out our Patreon if you want exclusive content like that. Let's get into the 10. So number 10 is a game that we don't play very often because it's a very big game, but just this game is always on my mind. And that's kind of the big thing. Is like some of these games are games we're playing a lot. Some are just like you said, just taking up a huge portion of our brains. And that is Kanban EV.
Yes.
I would play Kanban EV every single day if we had time.
If we had the time to set it up and play it on any given day, I would make that decision. We don't always have the opportunity to make that decision, but yes. It doesn't mean it's not very much in here. And I look at them like,
I play it right now.
Maybe.
Well, it's like a lot of times when we do have time to just play a game for fun, which unfortunately we don't have too much time to do. We always will just throw a game. So I can play this, I can play this. Kanban EV is literally every single time
always listed
in that list.
100% of the time.
Yeah. So this is a game where you are running a car factory.
Well, you're an employee.
Oh, you're not running.
Yeah,
you're an employee of the car
in the
factory.
machine, man.
Exactly. And so you are getting designs for these cars. You're getting parts for these cars. You're building them and having them on the assembly line, and then you're testing them. And you're basically doing that. You're going to a different spot, a different department every single round, and doing those kinds of things. You also have your boss Sandra, who's making sure you're doing stuff right.
Yeah,
and you have to
up on your training.
Yeah, make sure you're trained. You're gonna have to bring stuff to meetings and stuff, but it's just this very kind of linear, big, heavy game. But it's nice because it's like, it makes sense what you're doing. Like, oh, to build a car, you need a design. To then build a car, you need the car parts. You need to put it on the assembly line. And then you gotta test the car, make sure it doesn't explode or anything.
Right.
And so it's just this cool linear game that, like, for a big Vital Lacerda game, which is what it is, I feel like it's way more approachable and just makes more sense. And it's just, there's something, I don't know what it is, but there's something about this game that I am just so into.
I think it pairs so many things together really well. A, it's a robust mechanical experience. B, it's a very well integrated theme where what you're doing, you feel like a worker at this job. It's a worker placement where the worker is you. You are the worker working this job, and you have to go to work meetings and stuff like that. So it all blends throughout the mechanisms really well. And then it also has, tool and a really clean design. This is a game where you're working in a factory, and I love that everything's kind of like clean and pristine. It's like electric vehicles, so it's like kind of, the most now modern thing, and it just looks really sleek. And I think that helps the overall experience, is just the visual. Everything comes together really perfectly in this game. Yeah, it's really perfectly.
Like I said, it's just, I'm always thinking about it. I always want to play it. I want to play it right now. It's
Let's
so
just
good.
stop the rest of the video then. I mean, God, what are we doing?
So number 10 is Kanban EV. Let's get to number 9.
Number 9 is Bolanimo.
We say it all the time. It's like every year they just keep coming up with great little card games.
Yeah, last year in particular was a bunch of good ones, and Bruno Catala had his hands on a lot of them.
Yeah.
Bolanimo is a ladder climbing game. So what that means is you have a hand of cards that are going to be different numbers and colors. And you are trying to get rid of your hand of cards first. So kind of like Scout and stuff. And by doing this, to play cards out, you have to be able to play something higher than what has been previously played, meaning a higher value of cards. And the way you determine the value of cards is a couple fold. When you go to play cards, you can play all cards from the same color or all of the same numbers, like a set of the same number. And the amount of cards you play will determine the 10 value. So if I play 4 cards, I'm going to have 40. And then whatever the lowest number amongst those cards you're playing is will determine the single value. So if it's a 1, I would have 40 because I'm playing 4 cards. and 1 making 41.
Yep.
And you're trying to play a higher and higher thing. Eventually you might go to a thing where you have to pass and other people can play, or if everyone passes, it sort of resets back to 0 and people can go out and play cards first.
Yep.
And you're trying to get rid of your hand first, ultimately. Each
Yeah,
round, and the earlier in the round you go out, the more points you will get. And the later in the game you get, the more points rounds are worth.
Yeah.
So you want to just kind of manipulate that hand of cards as best you can so that ideally you can always play something legally.
Yeah.
But again, if you can't play higher, you can't play at all.
Yeah, and it's a simple little card game, but there's just, there's always, like, Scout kind of took over everything. If we'd done this last year, it probably would have been Scout still on our minds. But it's like Volumino is such an interesting ladder climbing game because of the fact that you can, when you play in cards, you can either play all the same number or all the same color. So if you have, like, 4 yellow cards and then 4 cards, you're like, oh, do I play this as the yellow? Because maybe like 2 of those yellows are 2 of the 4s.
Yeah, so do you
you're
break
kind
up
of like,
your set?
man, because if I play my yellows, now I only have 2 4s left over. That's not very good. But if I get rid of my 4s, then I only have 2 yellows. So there's constant, like, do I play this for this or do I play this for that? And there's that constant, like, ooh, the pot out there is at like 40. I could play 50 or I could play a 60 banger, but do I do it now?
Yeah.
Or do I wait and try to get more stuff and then hit it?
Because, like, if I do this, does it wreck my hand? Meaning that
Yes.
if I don't go out really soon after this, am I going to be stuck?
Yeah.
Which can happen. There's also these single cards you can play that are like 25, and it's just one card you play down. You don't play anything else with it. So, like, there's always a nice thing of, like,
you don't know where they
someone
are.
has the 50 card, they're not playing it yet, and when are they going to play that? So
and
there's
when
a
you
little
have
bit of, like,
that, it's also like,
wondering-
when do I play this 45? Should I just
Exactly.
go bop, do it right now?
Yep.
It's so good. It's a little card game, but it's just so good. I played it at Gen Con with Paula and Shay and really liked it. And then we played it recently at BGG Con with a bunch of people. And I was just like, it reignited that, like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. And then we played it with our friends recently. And I'm just like, I want to play Volumino in any of those situations where you're like, let's play a quick card game. Like, for me, the choice right now is Volumino. I want to play this one.
Yeah.
It's just so fun and so good. And it's every year there's these new card games. And they're always just great. They're always just great.
I hope it never ends,
Yeah.
that these games
I don't think
get
it ever will.
invented, because I think they're super fun and they're just twists on things that have come before. And this one has a fun theme of, like, this, like, bike race that's going on with all these animals. So it's just kind of a cute, interesting theme, but a great way to do a ladder climbing, card shedding kind of game.
It's really good. Next up is a very yellow game. This is Oranienburg Canal.
It's pretty yellow. It's pretty yellow.
Man,
better than beige.
It's better than beige.
Maybe better than beige.
I was thinking, I'll give you that. It's better than beige.
In theory, it is.
It is a color, you know.
This is an Uwe Rosenberg 2 or solo worker placement game.
Oh yeah, and it's just so good.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
God,
a really
so
fun
good.
game that we've really enjoyed. This will be coming out more widely as just Canal coming soon. Currently, this isn't really available for folks, but Oranienburg Canal is super duper fun. It's a worker placement game that uses the kind of resource wheel that, like, Glass Road and Ora et Labora and stuff other Uwe Rosenberg games use. And you are building out cards that are various structures on a little 4x4 player board grid of cards where you can have up to 16 cards. And you're going to be building routes like pathways, roads, canals, and rails around these cards. And most of the cards come down to they want to be surrounded by certain types of routes. And if you get, a bunch of roads next to this one, you get a better benefit when it triggers. And then the other main thing that what this game comes down to is the way you time stuff out.
Yeah.
Because if I play a card, I pay all the resources and play a card down, great. It's just sitting there until... Or if when you place it down, it is fully surrounded on all 4 sides by some route or other, whether it be those 4 that I mentioned, and then its effects will trigger. So you can play and put a card out, oftentimes will happen, before you completely surround that card with routes. And so it comes down to the timing of when things are going to trigger. Each card can also then reactivate a second time once you put 2 bridges. So you need to have now structures next to this card and a route between them to place a bridge down. And you can trigger them again. So it's all about timing, building up your resources, because some of them are like, hey, turn in iron for a bunch of prestige or points and stuff. So you're kind of trying to build things up so that when it triggers, you get the maximum possible effect of these cards as you go. The cards themselves are also worth points and things. And it's just a great puzzle to figure out that timing. But ultimately, like, the worker placement spots are dead simple. They're just like gain a couple of this resource, play a card.
Again,
it's all about the timing and the way you build your bored.
Yeah, kind of like something like Le Havre, where it's like the rules of the game in terms of like what you can do are like crazy
They're
simple,
pretty brief.
But then the way the cards work together, like, oh, I can do this card, that's gonna give me these resources, and I can do. It's like then it starts the strategy and all the complication comes from that, and it's like, but to get into the game, teaching the game is super fast, and this is a game where it's like you're in your own world. It's very multiplayer solitaire. It's frankly, you probably just play it solo, honestly.
Yeah.
And like it's so good though. When we first got it, we were so excited. We played it, and we were just like, uh-oh, that's bad. That's really good. Holy crap. I don't know where that is. Like it maybe instant top 10 game. I mean, it's just, and I think about it all the time. And it's just like, I want to get my own copy. When the new one comes out, I think we're going to have to get it, and then we'll each have a copy.
Yeah, because I mean, you can absolutely...
And I can solo it every day.
Yeah, which you could do. There's lots of cards to explore.
There are, sure. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. I'm excited to see it when it comes out as Canal. It'll get an art upgrade, which will be very neat because it's not a great looking game.
One of the worst.
But it's so good. We don't care. And the reason this is like on this list is, again, it's kind of like Kanban. It's not that we play it all the time, but we love Uwe Rosenberg so much. There is a hierarchy of games in general, and Uwe is pretty much all of their games are at the top.
Yeah.
And so having this one, even amongst other Uwe games, being like, is this my favorite one? And like literally my favorite game of all time is Feast for Odin, another Uwe game. So it's like when things come up and make you feel that good about games, you're kind of like, whoa, you know, it's pretty exciting.
It really is, you know, it really, really is. Yeah, Rosenberg Canal is incredible. That's number 8. Let's get number 7. Number 7 is you.
It's a me thing.
It's a you thing.
This is Res Arcana.
I have not played this game. The Mike is very obsessed with this game right now.
Res Arcana. I'm all in on it right now, man. Big thanks to Jeff from Fox and the Meeple for helping reteach me the game, teach me stuff about strategy, help explain what he's doing and why it's successful so I can like actually learn. And then shouts out to Board Game Arena for making it possible for us to play despite living very far away from each other. So I've been playing this with Jeff. Go subscribe to Foster Meeple if you haven't already. Most of our people are overlap people, but go and do that if you haven't. Well, I mean, obviously first. Yeah, don't kid yourself. Res Arcana is an engine building game. We're going to have, I think, 8 or 10 cards total that you could play throughout the game. And you are going to create an engine as you race to be the first one to get to 10 or beyond points. 10 points triggers the end of the game. And this game is all about, you have this combo of cards. You're going to start off with 3 of them and draw a new card every round and stuff. And it's like, how do I make this hand of cards function as an engine for gaining resources, getting the places of power, kind of the big important tiles that you can get that you can basically start generating points for yourself. It's like, how do I get this engine up and running? Yeah. And that is not a question I have answered for myself at all. I'm still quite bad at this game, although I'm currently in a game that I could possibly win, which is something. I'm not going to say I'm going to win, but I'm going to win. I'm going to have a shot at it for once. Easy game. And it's, you know, you're using these cards and tapping them for their abilities, spending resources, converting them into other ones, placing them onto cards, generating income, all sorts of stuff like that, depending on those cards you have. But it's just a really tough, interesting puzzle. Now, when we first started playing Res Arcana back when it came out 5-odd years ago now, the fact that I was so bad at this game, and I think this is where you still reside, was a turnoff. It became a point where I'm like, Not that I'm just not good at it, but like I was playing and I'm like, I don't even understand how to possibly get points at all. Like I see the pieces, I see my cards and their abilities, I understand that. And my brain just cannot compute that into, we'll do this and this and this and then turn them in for this and now you have some points. I couldn't do it. And again, I can't really do it great now, but I'm enjoying now the process of trying to see how combinations of cards work. Back to back to back to back. Like Res Arcana is a game where if you do those repeat plays, you start seeing the cards come up and you start getting more familiar and you start to see how you can make those things work. So this game very much rewards repeat plays, which again, is not something we have a ton of time for. But something like Board Game Arena playing asynchronously has made it much more easy, and I've actually really been enjoying playing, and I just now am at the point where I want to get good, and so I'm just hitting it again. Jeff and I are playing again, play again, play it again, play it again, and there's no end in sight. So yeah, it's been really cool, and it's been really exciting because this is a game that I wrote off for the longest time, and I think it's good that I've had a literally maybe 4-year minimum break from playing it to now approach it again, and it's effectively a brand new game, and now it feels different. So I'm glad I gave it the time, and I'm glad to be back trying it again. It's been really, really fun. So this is 100% my pick for this list. Maybe someday you'll try it, maybe not.
I want to try it again. I do want to, but it's like, it's this really is mostly Mikey. It's number 8. Let's get, oh, sorry, number 7. Let's get number 6. This one's also my pick, although I'm obsessed with wanting to try this game because I have heard this from so many people that Romy Rami is insanely good.
So good, man.
Insanely
I bought it.
Good. You did. It's right. I didn't know you bought it. I was like, oh, I didn't know you even have it.
We'll play it. It's like $15, and I was just like, yeah, let's get it because it's really good. This is a rummy-based game where you're gonna be playing out sets and runs of cards to complete specific contracts on cards. Basically, a card wants you to have a 3 of a kind and a run of 4 cards or something like that. And on a turn, you can draft up to 3 cards. And those cards must all be either from the same suit or the same number. There's numbers 1 through 5, and there's 4 suits of cards. And so you can take up to 3 cards on turn in your hand, and then you can fulfill 1 or more contracts if you wish, or you can simply pass and wait and kind of hold back your cards. And what's really cool is those contracts, again, will tell you if they want a couple of pairs or a specific pair or, you know, a run of 5 cards or a 5 of a kind, which are hard to amass, but they're obviously worth more points. But each contract has a suit preference, like it might be Clover's, for example. And when you go to fill out that contract and turn in your cards, any cards that you use that are of the Clover suit, you get to actually keep face down, and each one of those is worth 1 point at the end of the game. So you want to match the suit preference if you can. You don't have to, but as more cards you can play that match the suit, the better. So you're kind of like, well, I can fulfill this, but maybe I can draft more Clovers next turn, but then again, someone might complete that contract. So it's just like a really simple, easy to explain card game with just a couple little twists of that suit preference. There's the types of contracts you do. If it's like a suit preference like Clovers and stuff, there's these little crowns where if you've done more of the heart contracts than anyone else, you get a crown, which gives you some bonus points and stuff like that. But it's just a really simple, draft some cards, spend some cards to complete a contract, and get out of there. It
seems really cool. I mean, again, it's kind of like Philomeno we talked about. It's like it seems like this year's card game. I think it technically came out last year, but it's like that. Just like they're like, how do they keep doing it? How do we keep coming up with new card games that are great? How do we keep coming up with new trick-taking games? I don't know, but they keep doing it, and so it's like I want to try it so bad because I know Paula, like when she came back from Essen, she was like, we got to play this game. It's Romy Rami. And I know Jeff and Jamie are like super into it. So I'm just like, man, I want to play this game so bad. And I didn't know that Mike had bought it. So we can play it very soon here.
Let's do it.
Number 5, shout out to Crook, is Space Station Phoenix. This is a great game that like we had never heard of until our good friend Crook was like, I bought this game. I've heard it's good. Learn it, and he just gave it to us.
And we're like, what the heck is this?
And so this is a game, it's got kind of a generic space theme, which I think does not help it because it just looks like a generic space game. But it's so good. It's so interesting. There's so many like variety in terms of what you can get. So basically, you are making a little space station. And in your space station, you'll be putting out modules, and those modules are essentially going to be they're housing for different aliens and or humans. It's all very friendly. You're not like capturing these people. Like they're all just like you're essentially building a big hotel, kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of rad.
And then you have all of these different ships, and these ships are going to allow you to do these actions. So on your turn, you will spend gems. Gems are your like currency.
Yeah.
Because to do this particular ship, it's going to cost like 1 or 2 gems. But there's another ship that's like a level 3 ship that's a lot better that's going to cost like 5. And so that's kind of your currency. And so you do so the ship is going to allow you to do the main actions. But the cool thing is there's only a couple actions you can really do, but you'll have maybe multiple ships that do that action. And so one of the actions you do is dismantle a ship, because one of the main ways you get metal, and metal is how you build out these modules.
It's by far the most valuable resource.
Yeah, but you have to dismantle ships. You can also use other people's ships, and they get kind of a bonus when you do that. So it's this really interesting kind of action selection system of like, ooh, should I dismantle this one yet? I'm still using it, and so maybe I'll do that later. And then as you get these modules, these modules are going to have different income and then different kind of like special abilities on them once you fill them with inhabitants. So it's like if you have like you're building out the pink module, you need to fill it with pink aliens. And then once you get to this point, now whenever you do income, you're going to get this extra thing. And then everyone also has their own hub. And your hub is, again, its own thing. And it has a completely different power and income than everyone else.
Yep.
You also, there's like 25 hubs. It's like a 4-person game, so you don't use anywhere near all of them.
You can build a completely different space station every single time you play the game.
And it's just cool. It works really well.
Yeah,
it's relatively simple. It's fun to build out. It's fun to see like, oh, this game I have a lot of this kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to go super heavy into that. It's so much fun.
It's one of the bigger like surprise games because like we looked at the cover and we're like, okay, what's space station? I had no idea what it was, and it's so incredibly good.
Yeah. I just want to play it all the time.
Yeah,
like,
it's one of those ones that's like, hey, you don't know until you actually try it, and I'm glad that we did because we could have easily not given that game the time of day, and what a shame. Like, it's literally fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of the few games I've played on BGA.
Yes.
Like, I don't play games on BGA very often.
That's
like, it's so good.
Yeah, so that really proves something.
Yeah, that means a lot.
And it works well on Board Game Arena for sure. But that Space Station Phoenix, give it a go if you haven't. You can just build... It's so fun to build differently every time. It's just infinitely interesting.
Yeah, there's so many different strategies, so many different routes. It's just very cool. It's very cool.
So number 4 is going to be no surprise to anyone, considering it was our -- 1 game from the year last year, and we have continued right on playing it in the new year. This is the White Castle. I'm still loving showing this game to people, having people, everyone I've played it with has immediately been like, I want to play that again because this game is very much a combo, you're trying to chain combos together. You only get 9 turns as you are doing stuff around the Himeji Castle, and you are trying to extract as much as you can out of these 9 turns as possible. And oftentimes, if you do one of the 3 main actions, the Gardener action, the Courtier action, or the Warrior action, you will often be able to do kind of additional actions and stuff, including the main actions of the game, as a part of that one big turn. So you're trying to gain up your, build up your resources, gain everything, get everything, all your ducks in a row, so when you go to do these big actions, you can really maximize what you get, because every turn where you're drafting a die and putting it out somewhere onto the board, you're only doing that 9 times. Meaning you have 9 guaranteed turns in the game, so how do I chain one thing into the next so I'm really now getting kind of like a bonus turn? So now I kind of have 10 turns in the game. How can I end up in a game where I have 13 or 14 or 15 total turns worth of stuff that I do in only those 9 guaranteed dice that I'm drafting?
Because when you draft a die and you only do like one thing, it feels bad.
And it happens in the game. Sometimes you're like, well, I did that and I gained some resources.
That
and you're like, that's it. And you're like, that's a ninth of my time here. That's rough. But maybe it's worth it because you can,
and you're gonna have one turn that's like amazing.
Yeah. So it's just a really
since it came out, I mean, for the moment we played it, we immediately were like, ooh, that's front runner for Game of the Year, and it carried all the way through to the end of the year. And into the new year now, we're still playing it. We had other people who we have talked about the game with, that they finally played it. They're like, you're right, it's incredible. We're like, yeah, it's that good. It's so much fun.
It's really been amazing. As we've talked about many times, whenever we bring this game up, we bring up the fact that it doesn't take up a ton of space on the table, comparative to a lot of other games that provide you a big, chunky game experience. This one takes up a lot less space and still provides that oomph, which is very appreciated. Nice. It's got a great look. There's a lot of variable setup stuff, so that every time you come to approach the game, you're like, okay, well, given the setup of the board this time, I have an opportunity to maybe chain this thing into this and do my personal board action, and maybe that's not a combo that was present in a different game because of the way all the cards and things come out, and that's wonderful. Every time you get this like brand new puzzle, and try to find like, okay, based on this, how efficient can I be? And that's been a puzzle that we've just really enjoyed digging into every time.
Yeah, it's so good. So, it's great. That's 4. Let's get into 3. Number 3, this is not a new game by any means, but we played it very recently. We're always thinking about it. This is Clans of Caledonia, and you particularly played like 4 of these games back to back on BGA.
I've been playing with Matthew Jude, one of just my favorite people on the planet.
Yeah. But we played it recently, and it's been in my mind again now, and it's just like, it's just one of the greatest games I've ever made.
We are incredibly blessed to have a job where we get to play the newest games out there, many games that are not even coming out this year because they're coming out next year.
Yeah.
There's a bunch over there that I can see, looking at you, Galactic Cruise. And that is super duper cool.
Yeah.
And the flip side to that is we don't always have enough time to really go backward and play some of these games. And in playing with Matthew Jude and then playing with you, I remember that, like, oh yeah, Clans of Caledonia, I think last time we did our top 100 was like my number 3 all-time favorite game. And I played it, I'm like, oh right, this game is incredible. We play a lot of great games. This game is up here in the all-time classics. And it's been so nice to like play that game again because of course I enjoy it so much. It's super good. And so it was a nice reminder that like, hey, if you can do it, play those games that have been on your top 10 games or whatever, you know, lists for a long time because they really are that good.
Yeah. If they're still around, it's for a reason.
Yeah, and we played a game and I was just like, because I had been playing it on Board Game Arena, we played it and we're both like, oh, man, this is delicious.
Yeah, it's so good. There's just something about it. It's just the economic part of it, the kind of push and pull of putting stuff out, taking it back. It's just like this. I honestly, I couldn't ever really point to why it's so good, but it is just so freaking good.
I think it comes down to efficiency. Like everything in this game comes down to your money and spending money to put your sheep out and your cows to produce milk, and you want to put out like a cheese factory so you can turn your milk into cheese. And you're ultimately trying to do all these things to complete contracts, which will move you up these kind of exported goods or imported goods, and you want to have the most of them and stuff like that to get your main hit of points. But, you know, things are expensive. You know, it costs $9 to put on a cow, and then whatever spot on land you place, there's additional costs there. So it's like, you know, money gets tight in the later games. You're taking these contracts and completing them. In the first round, you get $5 if you take a contract. In the last round, it costs you $15 to take a contract.
It's
you're like,
really expensive.
That's tough, but hopefully you've built up your kind of industry and your economy.
Every clan has different powers. You have a bit of a set. It's just so good, man. It's just ridiculous. And yeah, this is a game. It's like we're always interested in, always thinking about. We've been playing it a bunch lately, and it's like, oh yeah. I mean, I'm glad we're doing this right before we do our top 100 because I'm like, oh yeah, it'll probably stay more or less where it is, like because
it's a top 10 game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good. Clans of Caledonia is incredible. It's number 3. Let's get number 2. Number 2 is a game that we've both been playing a bunch, but you particularly have been playing a lot. Again, Mike plays a lot of BJ, and this is Forest Shuffle. But Forest Shuffle, from the moment we played it, we were both just like, oh, that's good. That's a good one.
Something about them card games, bro. Something about card games.
But this one is because every game you're like, I'm going to try this.
Yes.
And I'm going to see if it works. This is a game where you're building out a forest. You can build trees, and then in those trees you can attach other cards to it, like birds and bees and a deer and a rabbit or whatever. And they can go on either side or on the top and the bottom, depending on the card. And on your turn, it's like dead simple. You can either play a card, and you play a card. Every card, the value of that card in terms of how much you have to pay for it is going to, you have to pay other cards. You have to pay two cards to play this card, and those cards go to a tableau. Or on your turn, you can draw cards. You either draw off the top of the deck, or you can draw cards that are out in that tableau. So it's this interesting thing. I always love games where you have to pay for cards with other cards because I just think it's interesting.
Because of course, ideally, you'd play them all because you like them all.
But you're like, oh, Mike's collecting all these like beech trees. I want to make sure so I don't want to discard this beech tree because Mike's just going to snag it next turn.
Yeah, that whole kind of shared market creates a lot of interest where you're like, okay, what's everyone going for, and how do I make sure I don't directly feed someone's engine by putting this wolf? And they're like, great, thank you for that. I've got 15 deer, you know.
But there's so many different cards, and there's so many like I'm going to go deer strats. I'm going to get a ton of deer. Like I'm going to get a ton of hares, a bunch of rabbits.
The European hares.
I'm going to go
some
all
foxes
trees
for those hares.
And it's like you can just do these crazy strategies that every single time.
I'm going bird strat right now.
Okay.
Because I've got 3 cards out where it says for every bird you have, you get 3 points. So guess what? I got 3 birds. They each have 3 points. I don't know enough math to figure out those points.
27 points.
But eventually it's going to start adding up. You know what I mean? And that's very fun to do.
And I think that's why it is and why we get so like, oh, I want to play it over and over and over again. Because I'm like, I just want to keep exploring weird strategies. Like I'm going to do this card and this card and try to get a bunch of those and try to do. I'm going to get a bunch of bears and try to fill my
Everyone says
cave.
like, oh, this strat's broken. I'm like, if you hit any of the combos hard enough, they become insanely broken. So I'm like, okay, well then just do a different insane combo. And there's an expansion coming. There's gonna be more cards. Let's go!
Yeah, this is one I want to play over, and it's a shortish game.
It's great.
Not super long. It's in a smaller box, so you can like. It's just like this is a game we're gonna be playing over and over and over.
Shout out to Amy Maggie from Thinker Themer because they were the first ones that like made me aware of it. I had not heard of it before, and it got me really excited, and I played it, and I was like, this absolutely blew me away.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is so fun. I love the simplicity of the turns. Play a card or draw 2 cards. Oh, and what you can build with that is just great.
It's so good. So that's Forest Shuffle number 2, but it's not number 1. Number 1, I'm so into this game.
You
right
know
now.
that it is Hungry Hungry Hippos.
Number 1,
Hungry Hippos. Listen here. Okay, there's marbles and you gotta eat them.
You gotta.
It's Kutna, the City of Silver. Basically the same.
Basically the exact same game. Yeah, this game, I can't stop thinking about it. I mean, I'm thinking about it nonstop.
A really neat game.
I'm really bummed out we don't have it because I want to play it all the time. We'll get it eventually.
CG, where that?
We'll pick it up, yeah. This is a game where you are building out Kutna, the City of Silver, and you basically are doing that.
Kutna, Nevada.
Kutna, Nevada, you know, where CG is based out of, as we know.
You know this famously. Famously, they are a casino and resort.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is where you're building up the city of Kutna, and
you're doing it through action cards.
Yes.
And these action cards are cool because they're dual-use cards. So on one side will be one action, one side will be the other action, and so you have to choose what side you're going to play when you play that card, which is always nice because you can also like kind of screw yourself because you're like, oh, I can't do this action because it was on the bottom half of all those other cards that I used for other actions this turn.
So you have to be a little careful with that.
That's not good. And so you're building up the city. You're getting you're getting the rights to these buildings, these tiles, and then you're building them out in the city. But it's also cool because there's a bunch of different guilds in the game, but not everyone can build all the guilds.
No, you each will have 3 guilds of the 6 types that are possible that you can build and work on. So I might be like wood, beer, and meat. And those are the types of buildings I can build, and you draft out kind of a set of them. So they're all kind of like dialed in by the game, so it's not like completely random. And those are the guilds you can work on and build. And if you build out those buildings, it will adjust the market value of those resources. Because if I'm now providing more meat for the town, the price will go down. Yeah. But now I also have like a stake in that, so you can start playing income cards to collect income from the industries you've helped build.
Yeah, and the cool thing is because it's the City of Silver, everything is done with money. So there's all these resources, Mikey said, but you never actually get those resources. So you never actually have like a pile of wood or a pile of meat or a pile of beer. You just, when you need to build something with wood, you look at the market value, which say is like $3 per wood, and then you need to build a thing that's like 4 wood, you need to pay $12 because you have 4 wood, it's $3 per wood, so you have to pay $12. But it's always just done through money. No matter what you're doing, no matter what you're buying, what you're building, you just pay money, which is nice because it keeps organization easier because you don't have a bunch of different bits. But it's just a cool thing because the market price is going up and down constantly depending on supply and demand.
Yep. You're growing the population of the town as people do
also
stuff. So
now
then
it's
the
getting
goes
harder.
up.
Yeah, and so it's just so much fun. That money and that back and forth is so interesting. The guilds kind of specialize in slightly little different things. There's stuff you're kind of all working on together, a little bit of shared infrastructure stuff. You're trying to jockey for position in the city with your buildings. It's just, I don't know what it is about this game, but I cannot stop thinking about it.
Yeah, there's just a lot of fun things to think about because you have to plot out land, like well, I'm going to be able to build on this space. And then when you build out, each building provides like these little icons, and you want as many buildings around that building to have matching icons because you get points at the end of the game. There's these public buildings that you can build that aren't owned by anybody. They're like a hospital. So they're literally like public services, which is cool because it increases the taxes that everyone has to pay because now we all have to pay for these things. But they provide a lot of benefit for the town. And if you're the one that builds them, you can put patricians out onto the board and do various things, but they're not owned by anybody. So it does a really good job of kind of simulating a town being built up and the way that the town changes and what things cost and what industries are worth what change as you build up your population stuff. You're also developing, you're digging into the mines beneath, and there's a separate kind of little tray that represents, the industries and the mine. And you're getting like, coal and stuff, and then ore, which is, more valuable, of course. And it just does a good job of like simulating, I guess, a town.
And this game, it just also plays so differently depending on the game. I've talked about it before, but it's like there's one game where me and this guy named Dave were playing with our friend Neat, and like we both had the Wood Guild.
Yes.
And
the only ones that can build those buildings.
And we never built one. Not because of any reason. We we were prioritizing other things. So wood ended up being so expensive because we never supplied the town with wood.
Yeah.
So it was super scarce. So like wood literally costs like $12, which is insanely expensive. The most you ever see usually is like 5 or 6, maybe 7. So like literally building one of the public buildings, which is like 12 wood, took $144. But we also were all super rich for some reason.
Yeah.
So like we just had tons of money. It was so different. We literally played this game twice in one day. And both the games were super different because just who had what guilds, when you were building, it's just, I don't know, there's something about this game. I was not super interested because I don't think the cover is particularly great, but the actual game itself is actually very, very pretty.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, Could Orb, the City of Silver, all right. The cover's like, okay. I wasn't that interested. I finally played it and I was just like, holy crap. It would have been one of my favorite games of the year last year if we'd played it last year.
Yeah, so maybe it'll be on our adjusted list this year.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's really great. So those are 10 games that we are just taking up a lot of our brain space right now. Will they always be that spot? I don't know. They may or may not, but they are, you know, of the moment, things that we are just really super duper into.
Yeah.
We want to know from you though, what games you're super duper into, new or old, whatever it is, get them in the comments below.
Indeed.
And you probably have seen these bunch of names scrolling down beneath us. Those are our patrons. We have recently made a lot of changes to our Patreon. We are providing a supplemental top 10 list, of which there will be a supplemental 10 for this list that you just watched. First looks at games, our favorite games of the week that we play, Q&A, a bunch of stuff like that, all happening on our Patreon. Please consider supporting if you can. It really does help us out a lot and get your name on this list.
Indeed. All right, and that's going to be it for us, y'all. Let us know what games you're super into right now. Make sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already. Love you to death, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching that top 10 games that we're super into, we're obsessed with. Obsessed maybe is a little bit of a strong word, but whatever. Clickbait stuff, you know how it goes. We want to give a big shout out to our channel sponsors, Restoration Games, Board Game Geek, Lucky Dub Games, and a new sponsor, Garfield Games. Thank you so much to all of our channel sponsors, and thank you all for watching. Make sure to check out the other videos and subscribe if you haven't already. Love you.